For my dear Fiona. When Fiona was about 2.5 years old, I began to tell her stories about a princess named Fiona. I can remember her spending the night, and we would snuggle together in bed as I would spin a magical story for her. Fiona always wanted to be a princess, a very good choice because she is certainly qualified. She had sparkle shoes, a tiara, and a magic wand. As time went on, I would talk about the story to her, and even let her add some ideas for it, especially the name of the prince. That was special. As we were trying to think of a name for him, we both thought of the same name at the same time, sort of like magic. So no matter how old Fiona is, she will always be my special princess. I hope Fiona will always remember how much I love her and enjoyed our talks. We have so much in common. We have great love of animals and also enjoying writing stories. I think you definitely have the family gene for writing. Many, many years from now, I hope you find your perfect Prince Charming. I also hope he is a good man like your father, who is loving and kind. You have been blessed with wonderful mother and father that love you very much. You also have a special bond with your sister, Princess Delaney. Watching the two of you together brings back so many memories of my sister and me as we grew up. My sister always looked after me, and just as you are doing for Delaney. So, my dear Fiona, here is your very special princess story, written with so much love. I know you will always keep magic in your heart. Fiona's Story, The Magic Box, by Mary Lee Duffy, with assistance from Fiona Duffy. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young princess named Fiona. Her father and mother were king and queen of a small magical kingdom called Stardust, just off the coast of Ireland. Princess Fiona had a little sister named Princess Delaney, and the two were very close. The kingdom of Stardust was always several other small countries, and the kingdom and the people of each one were very friendly. But Stardust was a favorite because the king and queen ruled with much kindness and love for their people. Princess Fiona and Princess Delaney followed the same way, and the subjects loved them. One day, Princess Fiona was on her way home from the village. She had to shop for her mother, the queen, who needed special spices for some pies she was making. The queen enjoyed baking and then taking the tasty treats around to the ill and elderly townspeople to cheer them up, of course. The act of kindness was very much appreciated. Fiona was thinking about the upcoming ball her parents were having for her. She had recently graduated from college, and the king and queen were having a huge party for her to celebrate. The princess would be meeting some young men in the surrounding kingdoms and villages. She had dated some of the different young men in the small countries in the high school and college, but her parents wanted her to have an opportunity to meet some of the other young men. The princess was excited because her dear friend, Princess Kemper, was coming to stay the several days to help with the ball, and Princess Delaney would be helping also. The girls were very excited. They knew several of the other young lads and ladies that were coming, and getting together was always fun. As Fiona was driving her pony cart, she saw ahead a neighbor lady walking along the road. Suddenly, the lady stumbled and dropped some of her packages. The princess quickly pulled up to her beside the lady and jumped down to help her. Princess Fiona realized the lady was Mrs. Rose, a favorite of hers. Mrs. Rose lived in a small cottage down the road from the castle and grew the most beautiful flowers in the kingdom. Sometimes Princess Fiona and Princess Delaney helped her in the garden. They also enjoyed playing with her, Mrs. Rose's tiny cats. Mrs. Rose cried, "Princess Fiona, let me help you. I can give you a ride home." Mrs. Rose thought that would be grand, and she and the princess loaded the packages into the cart and set off. When they arrived at the cottage, they unloaded the package, and Mrs. Rose invited the princess to have tea with her in the garden. The princess accepted, and while tea was steeping, she played with the kittens. Mrs. Rose had named them after some of the flowers in the garden. There was Lily, Violet, Heather, and Petunia. They were fun to watch and play with. As Mrs. Rose brought out the tea, a tiny black kitty followed her. Princess Fiona leaned down and picked her up. "Who is this cutie?" she asked. Mrs. Rose told her she called her Rosie and was looking for a home for her. Princess Fiona volunteered at once to take the kitten. She liked all animals and knew that her sister, Princess Delaney, would love Rosie. Mrs. Rose watched the princess as she sipped her tea and then told her she had a surprise for her. "Oh, goody," said the princess. "I like surprises." Mrs. Rose told her that she was a beautiful young girl, and she knew that the ball at the castle in the few days would be fun. She knew Princess Fiona had been courted by many of the young boys in the kingdom, villages, and even some of the boys from school. Mrs. Rose wanted to be sure that she would find the right one to share her life with. Fiona told Mrs. Rose that her mother and father had talked to her about this. Her mother had told her she wanted to find a good man, just like her father. Mrs. Rose said that was good advice. When they finished their tea, they went inside the cottage. Up high on the bookcase was a small wooden box that Mrs. Rose took down. She told the princess it was a magic box. Have to have a little sip of something here. Mrs. Rose said that every time she met a young man and thought he was the one, to open the box and think about him. She told the princess that inside the box was a small gray stone. If the stone looked the same, then that was not the right young man for her. When she met the right one, she would know, because the stone would turn to gold. How exciting, thought Fiona. This really was a magic box. Princess Fiona thanked Mrs. Rose and told her she needed to get home. Her mother would be waiting, and she was anxious to give her sister, Princess Delaney, the little kitty. Fiona could not wait to tell her friend Kemper about the magic box. Of course she would tell her little sister too. So Fiona tucked the little kitty beside her in the cart and headed home. But first she gave Mrs. Rose a hug and thanked her for the tea in the magic box. Mrs. Rose smiled and told her it was her pleasure. As Fiona drove away, Mrs. Rose waved and told her to keep Princess Delaney and also bring her best friend Kemper to have tea and a visit. On the way home, Princess Fiona had a lot to think about. Her best friend Kemper was coming for a visit, and they shared many secrets. Kemper lived in another magical kingdom, not far from Stardust. Princess Kemper and her family ruled the kingdom of Moonlight, and they were good friends of Fiona and her family. Kemper was coming because Fiona's parents decided it was time for the girls to be introduced to some of the young lads in all the magical kingdoms. This would be an exciting event because everyone would be dressing up and their suitors, but they had not found the right one yet. Fiona wondered what Kemper and Delaney would think about the magic box. Princess Kemper was arriving tomorrow and would be staying several days. So it was with great happy thoughts that Princess Fiona arrived home. Young Princess Delaney was just coming down the front steps to meet her. She helped Fiona get the packages down and was thrilled with the little black kitten. They thought Rosie was a great name for her. The kitten had a tiny pink nose that looked rosy. The two girls already had a tiny black dog named Licorice and were sure the dog and kitty would be friends. At least they hoped they would be. Fiona gave her mother, the queen, the spices she wanted, and then went in search of her father, the king, who was just coming down from their vineyard. The grapes were doing well, and they were sure to have a wonderful harvest. Many fine vintage wines came from their county. The king told her he had heard from Princess Kemper's parents, and they would be coming to the upcoming ball. Kimber was coming tomorrow, and the rest of the family was arriving by the ball in a few days. Princess Fiona and her sister had a fitting that evening for their ball gowns. Fiona's gown was a soft blue color, the same as her eyes. Everyone was enchanted with her beautiful blue eyes. Their color was a gorgeous blue. The gown was trimmed in a fine white lace with many pearls and sparkles sewn through the lace. Princess Delaney was going to wear a beautiful pink ball gown that was one of her favorite colors. The gown was trimmed with dark rose velvet ribbons. The little princess was happy as she was the first real ball, and the evening was sure to be fun. She knew her dress would be beautiful, and she twirled around the dance floor. Princess Kimber was bringing her ball gown. It was a lovely shade of lavender and had dark violet lace and ribbons all through the skirt of the gown. The girls went to bed early that night. They had to be up the next day, so they had to rest now. In the morning, they awoke to voices coming from the main hall, and they ran to greet Princess Kimber. Everyone helped with the suitcases and boxes. The king teased Kimber that she probably bought enough clothes to last a year. After breakfast, they all set out to preparing for the ball. It was just a couple days from now. There was little more to do, as all the advanced planning had been done and the castle was ready. Fiona told Kimber that there were many young lads and ladies coming. Some of them were also from royalty, but there was also some friends from her village and school that were coming. Then Fiona told Kimber about the magic box Mrs. Rose had given her. The girls shared many secrets, and they were the best of friends. Princess Kimber was enchanted to hear the story of the magic box. They talked all about the ball and what fun it was going to be. The girls laughed together as they read over the guest list. Lord Laugh-A-Lot and his mother, Lady Giggles, would be coming, and the Count of Silliness and the Duke of Dizzy. Sir Sneezy and the little Count of Coughing would also be coming. There would be many people at the ball, and the girls would welcome them all. As the girls worked that afternoon, Kimber told Fiona and Delaney about the young man she had seen that morning as she drove from her castle. It was a short drive from the country road that was lush with trees and flowers of every color. Across a meadow, Kimber said she saw a young man riding a beautiful black horse, dark as the night. The horse was fantastic. Princess Kimber said there was a smaller white horse, a mare, riding beside the stallion that was lovely. Kimber said she could tell this young man was good with horses, as they seemed to anticipate his every command. The horses were well matched and lovely to watch. The three girls discussed how much they loved horses and other animals. Princess Fiona told them that she had always wanted a white horse. Perhaps she could find out who this young man was, and maybe her parents would be willing to help with the cost of the white mare. She would have to think about that. The morning of the ball was filled with activity. Everyone was buzzing around and making last-minute changes if needed. Princess Fiona found a few minutes to speak with her father and told him about the white horse that Kimber had seen with the young man. Her father told her he knew the man. He was from the kingdom of Golden Sun. The king told her he was the youngest son of the king, and his life's work was working with animals. Everyone from miles around knew of the young prince's love of animals. It was said that he had the magic touch when it came to caring for any of God's creatures. Fiona told her father that he would be a good person and she would like to meet him. The king told her that he had already invited the young prince to the ball and was hoping he could attend. Princess Fiona decided that if the prince came, she would talk to him about the white horse. She had saved some money herself, but she felt her parents might help with the cost also. After a busy morning, the three girls took a rest in the afternoon. Princess Kimber's parents arrived, and with their own little sisters. The young girls knew they would be up late, so they were glad to have a quiet rest. Princess Fiona and Princess Kimber took the magic box out again and looked at the stone. Fiona thought about a couple of the young men she had dated and liked, but the stone remained gray. Princess Fiona was not unhappy. She was young and had her whole life ahead of her and lots of things to do. She knew that the time was right, the stone would shine for her. As soon as they started down the stairs, Princess Fiona could hear the music. She was going to enter the ballroom last. Her father, the king, stood at the entrance and took her by the arm to escort her and have the first dance. Then he would let the young men take their time dancing with her. The king knew most of these lads and wanted to make sure Fiona would find her prince charming. Around and around the dance floor, Fiona and the other girls danced. Their dresses twirled about and sparkles shone bright. Fiona was just catching her breath after a rather fast dance, and when she was approached by a handsome young man, he bowed to Fiona and took her hand and asked if he could have the next dance. Princess Fiona smiled and said yes. For the rest of the evening, Fiona would only dance with this young man. Everyone was watching, and Princess Delaney asked Princess Kemper if she knew him. Kemper said he was the young man she saw a few days ago, the one riding the black horse with the white mare beside him. Delaney's father came over and told the girls his name was Prince Stefan. He was the youngest son of the King of Golden Sun. Delaney asked her father if Prince Stefan would be a king someday, and he told her no, that Prince Stefan was a doctor, a veterinarian, and was wonderful with animals. Stefan was both a prince and a doctor. The king had met with Stefan a few times, and he liked him very much. Fiona's mother joined her husband, Delaney and Kemper. She smiled as she watched Fiona's prince and Prince Stefan dance around the room. They looked like they were having a good time as they were laughing and talking quite a bit. And they were talking. Fiona was finding out about Prince Stefan. He was also a doctor for animals. How wonderful that would be. She told him she had heard about the white horse and asked him if he was interested in selling the mare. Stefan paused for a moment and then told her his story about the white horse was not for sale. He had planned to give the horse as a gift. Fiona smiled and told him that was okay. She just hoped that person would enjoy the horse. He told her he was sure she would. As the evening was ending, Prince Stefan and Princess Fiona asked Princess Fiona to step outside with him. He also invited the king and queen and several others to join them. When they got to the front of the house, Fiona heard a noise. It was a horse, the white horse. She was beginning to look at him and was led over to them by one of the grooms. Prince Stefan looked down at the Fiona and told her the horse was his gift to her. Stefan told Fiona that he had asked permission from her parents to court her. Fiona was almost speechless. She thought she could learn to care for this man and maybe even fall in love with him. But of course she would have to get to know him. As if reading her mind, Prince Stefan told her he had great respect for her and her family. They would get to know each other and see where it would take them. He asked if she would like to go riding in the morning and see how she liked her gift. He also told her he would need to name this magic horse. But before he did, he wanted to show her something. Prince Stefan took Fiona's hand and walked her over to the horse. She looked down at them as they got closer. Princess Fiona thought she was the most beautiful horse she had ever seen. The horse's mane was long and part of the flowed down across her eyes. Prince Stefan gently reached up and pushed the horse's mane away from the eyes, and there, right in the middle of the horse's forehead, was a perfect shape of a star. The king bent down and whispered to the queen's ear. I knew it was perfect horse for her. The king bent down and whispered to the queen, I think she might be interested in the horse and the prince. The queen laughed and nodded yes. This was a wonderful way to end the evening. The prince and princess made plans to go riding in the morning. The guests started to leave, thanking the royal family for an exciting ball. Everyone was talking about this on their way home. Prince Stefan said goodbye to the princess and her family and friends and told her he would be back in the morning. Fiona told him to come early so they could ride and they could see the sun come up. Princess Delaney laughed and said, "The sun will be up in about 4 hours. Then we all had better turn in for the night," said the king, and off they went to bed. Princess Fiona and Delaney and Kemper hurried to Fiona's bedroom. There was one last thing they needed to do before to go to sleep. Fiona gently lifted the magic box down from the dresser and opened the lid. The girls jumped back when the box was open. The golden light was bright. It was so bright it lit up the whole room. Delaney and Kemper said they thought people in the village could probably see it. The girls hugged each other and jumped up and down, laughing. Princess Fiona believed she had found her Prince Charming. They got ready for bed and said good night. Fiona looked out the window at the stars. Mrs. Rose had told her once that the stars were angels watching over her. Fiona thought that was a beautiful thought. She closed her eyes and dreamed about the prince. P.S. When Fiona was 2, she gave me a gray stone about the size of a quarter. She found it in her driveway. I have carried it in my purse every day. It might be magic. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits you here, ever this day to be at my side, to light and guard and rule and guard. Amen. But Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them, for such is the kingdom of heaven." Matthew chapter 19, verse 14.